Please don't seat him with us, Sloane Brookers whispered to the hostess. He'll make this look like a charity dinner. The man she was hiding was Gideon Brooks, her husband's father, and the guest whose 68th birthday they claimed to be celebrating. In front of his 11-year-old granddaughter, they removed his handmade place card from the VIP table, sent him to a 2-seat table near the service door, and ordered $7,860 in tasting menus and wine under the assumption that he would pay. Gideon never raised his voice. He ate alone, repaired the bent corner of his granddaughter's card, and waited until the leather bill folder was pushed toward him. Then the restaurant's general manager stopped beside his chair. "Gideon," he said, staring toward the VIP table. "Are those people dining with you?" Gideon placed enough money beside his own receipt and his granddaughter's meal. "No, they made that clear when they removed my seat. Please honor their decision." Minutes later, 2 cards declined, and the family who had hidden him was told they could not leave until the bill was resolved. Why had Gideon paid for their mistakes for years, and why did he finally stop that night? If you believe dignity should never depend on clothes or status, subscribe and stay with this story. 2 hours earlier, Gideon was sitting in his car, fixing the tiny brass latch on Amara's music box. The box rested across his broad palm beneath the warm light of the parking garage. It was made of pale maple, with a little dancer inside and a lid that had refused to stay closed for nearly a month. Gideon had brought a screwdriver no longer than his finger, 2 replacement screws, and a folded square of felt to protect the wood. He had spent 43 years installing stair rails, carved doors, library shelves, and hotel paneling that other people walked past without wondering who had shaped them. Retirement had slowed his hands, but it had not changed what they knew. The latch clicked into place just as the rear door opened. "You fixed it." Amara leaned into the car, still wearing the dark blue dress her mother had chosen. Her braids were tied with silver ribbons. Behind her, Landon was taking a call near the elevator while Sloane spoke to the valet about a crease in her car door. Gideon turned the key beneath the box. 4 soft notes floated through the car. Amara smiled. "That's the part I'm learning." The left hand comes in after the 4th note. Her smile widened. "You remembered." That was what Gideon had wanted from the evening. Not a private room, not an expensive meal. He wanted to sit beside his granddaughter and listen to her talk about the piano piece she had been practicing for the winter recital. He wanted one night with Landon when no one mentioned tuition, rent, a car repair, or an emergency that became Gideon's responsibility before he had even heard the whole story. Amara reached into her small purse and pulled out a folded card. She had written Grandpa in purple marker and drawn 2 uneven candles beneath the word. "This goes next to me," she said. "I made one for everybody, but yours is the best." Gideon slipped it carefully into the inside pocket of his brown jacket. The jacket was older than Amara. Its cuffs had softened with use, but it was clean and carefully brushed. Beneath it he wore a blue shirt. Dark trousers and leather shoes he had polished that afternoon. "Save me a seat," he said. "I already did." His phone lit up before they stepped out of the car. The message was from Wesley Carver. "Happy birthday. Old man, I'll make my rounds after 8. Don't leave without letting me buy you coffee." Gideon smiled and put the phone away. Wesley had been his closest friend since high school, but Gideon had not told Landon that Wesley managed the restaurant. There had been no reason to. This dinner was supposed to be about family, not favors. At the elevator, Sloane looked at Gideon's jacket, then at the tailored coats moving through the marble lobby ahead of them. "I wish you'd worn the blazer we sent," she said. "This one fits." "That wasn't what I meant." Landon ended his call, but said nothing. He gave his father a quick pat on the shoulder, the kind of greeting that began and ended before either man had to decide whether to hug. "Happy birthday, Dad." "Thank you, son." The restaurant occupied the top floor of a restored downtown hotel. Soft gold light spread across dark wood walls. A chandelier hung above the entrance like frozen rain, and every voice seemed to lower itself the moment it crossed the threshold. Sloane moved ahead and gave the reservation name. The hostess greeted her warmly, complimented her dress, and signaled for someone to take the family's coats. Gideon stepped forward with Amara's music box in one hand. The hostess glanced at his jacket, then toward the service elevator. "Drivers wait on the lower level, sir." For a moment, Gideon thought he had misheard her. Sloane did not correct the mistake. Amara did. "He's not our driver, he's my grandpa." The hostess's face changed at once. "I'm so sorry. I thought, it's all right," Gideon said, though it was not. Two white guests in hiking jackets walked in behind him. No one asked whether they belonged upstairs. No one examined their clothes before offering to take them. The hostess checked the screen. "The Brooks party is set for 9. Would you like me to take everyone together?" Sloane's hand settled lightly on the desk. "Actually, our VIP table is full. Mr. Brooks prefers somewhere quieter." The hostess looked at the seating chart. "There's still a chair beside the young lady. Please don't seat him with us," Sloane whispered. She glanced toward a well-dressed couple, waiting near the bar, then lowered her voice further. "He'll make this look like a charity dinner." The words were quiet enough to pretend they had not been spoken. Gideon heard everyone. His first impulse was to ask Landon whether this was truly how his birthday would begin. The question rose into his chest, hot and heavy. Then he felt Amara's fingers close around two of his. He looked down at her frightened face and chose the sentence that would not make an 11-year-old stand between her parents and her grandfather. "Show me the quiet table." The hostess hesitated. She had been given a chance to ask Gideon what he wanted. Instead, she picked up 2 menus and obeyed the person wearing the more expensive dress. The VIP table stood beneath a sculpted glass light near the windows. There were flowers, crystal wine glasses, and place cards at every setting. Amara's card for Gideon sat beside hers exactly as she had promised. 5 of Sloane's clients and friends were already there. They greeted Landon with handshakes and air kisses. One man raised a glass and asked if the birthday legend had arrived. Sloane laughed too quickly. Then she picked up Gideon's card. Amara reached for it. "That's Grandpa's. Sweetheart, we need the space. There's a chair." Sloane slid the card beneath her clutch. "This table is for people your father needs to impress." Gideon saw Landon flinch. It was small, but it was there. He waited for his son to pull out the empty chair. Landon looked at Amara instead. "Don't make this hard for your mother." A floor captain removed the chair and carried it away. The scrape of its legs across the floor lasted only 2 seconds, but to Gideon it sounded longer. It was not simply a chair being moved. It was his place in the family being taken away in front of his granddaughter. Amara pulled a napkin across the empty space as if she could preserve it. Gideon walked to the small table near the service door. Each time the door opened, white kitchen light broke across his plate, followed by the clatter of dishes and a gust of warm air. From there, he could see the VIP table. He could see Amara looking back at him. He could also see Sloane place his bent card beside an ice bucket where drops of water gathered along its edge. No one offered a birthday toast. No one asked Gideon how he had been. At the VIP table, Sloane ordered the chef's full tasting menu for the group. Then she asked for 2 bottles of wine old enough to have been stored before Amara was born. The senior server paused with her order pad. "Before I open those, how would you like the check divided?" Sloane did not look toward Gideon. "The father is hosting." The server looked at Landon. "Mr. Brooks?" Landon's eyes moved once toward the corner table. Then he nodded. "My father has it." The answer entered the restaurant's record, as if Gideon had spoken for himself. At his table, Gideon ordered the standard menu and sparkling water. He did not know what had just been placed in his name. He only knew that his son had watched a chair disappear and allowed it to happen. The senior server brought his first course. When she saw his face, she stopped. "Mr. Brooks." Gideon recognized her only vaguely. but she seemed certain. Before she could say more, the floor captain called her sharply from across the room. "The window table is waiting." She looked from Gideon to the VIP group, then set down his plate. "Happy birthday, sir," she said quietly. It was the first time anyone in the restaurant had said it. Across the room, Sloane lifted a glass of wine that she believed Gideon would buy. Landon drank with her. But he did not meet his father's eyes. The service door swung open again. Gideon steadied the wet place card beside his plate and realized the dinner had changed. He had arrived hoping to be treated like a father. His family had already decided he was only there to pay. At 7:20, Amara appeared beside the corner table carrying a small plate of bread. "Mom said I should stay in my seat," she whispered. Gideon moved his water glass aside. "Then we'd better make this a short visit." She sat across from him anyway. From her purse, she pulled the Grand Prix card. One corner had become soft from the water beside the ice bucket, and purple ink had bled into the paper. I took it back. Gideon laid it flat on the table. He pressed the wet corner between two clean napkins, then used the handle of his spoon to smooth the fold. "Some things bend," he said. "That doesn't mean they have to stay broken." Amara looked toward the VIP table. "Why does your birthday not have a seat for you?" There was no answer Gideon could give without handing a child an adult wound. "Your mother planned a business dinner inside a family dinner," he said. "Sometimes grown-ups mix things together that should have stayed separate. She said your clothes would make her friends uncomfortable." Gideon's jaw tightened. He folded the damp napkin once, then again, giving his hands something careful to do. "My clothes are clean. They're mine, and I'm comfortable in them." Amara nodded. But she was not asking about the jacket. She was asking whether what had happened to him was acceptable. He wished Landon would come over and answer that question. Instead, his son remained at the window table. Smiling at a story he had not heard, Amara pushed the bread plate toward Gideon. "I saved the warm ones." That small act nearly broke his control more than Sloane's insult had. He took one piece and thanked her. "Are you mad at Dad? I'm hurt by what he did." "Is that the same?" "Not always." Sloane turned in her chair and saw Amara at the corner table. Her smile remained in place for her guests. But two fingers tapped the table in a silent command. Amara stood. Before she left, Gideon handed her the repaired music box. "Keep this safe for me." She hugged it against her dress. "You're still coming to my recital, right? Front row." He made the promise without hesitation. Whatever boundary he set with Landon and Sloane, Amara would not pay for it. At the VIP table, another bottle was opened. A server placed a small tin of caviar among the courses. Sloane spoke about clients, venues, and the kind of people who could change a family's future. Landon's phone vibrated beneath the table. He turned the screen away, but Gideon saw the color leave his face. Landon read the warning twice, locked the phone, and slipped it into his pocket. Sloane leaned toward him. He whispered something. Her eyes flicked toward Gideon, then returned to her guests. They kept ordering. One of the guests finally asked the question everyone had avoided. "If this is your father's birthday, why is he sitting over there?" Sloane gave a practiced little laugh. "Gideon likes his privacy. Big social tables overwhelm him." Gideon heard the lie through a pause in the room. He had spent his working life directing crews in airports, hotels, and public buildings. He had spoken at his wife's funeral when grief made every breath feel borrowed. He did not fear a dinner table. What he feared was admitting how easily Landon had allowed his wife to erase him. The senior server heard the lie too. She glanced at the floor captain, then toward the restaurant's hallway. On the wall there hung a small photograph taken after a fire 12 years earlier. In it, a younger Gideon stood with a crew of carpenters beneath the restored walnut archway. He had led that work at cost because the restaurant had not yet recovered enough to pay a full commercial rate. He had never accepted free meals afterward. Wesley had once told him that pride could be as stubborn as friendship. Gideon had not thought about the photograph in years. At 7:50, Wesley Carver entered the dining room. He was tall, silver-haired, and dressed in the same dark suit he wore for guest rounds every evening. He greeted 2 tables, adjusted a crooked place setting, and stopped to speak with the senior server. She pointed discreetly toward Gideon. Wesley turned. His welcoming smile vanished. He crossed the room without hurrying, but the floor captain hurried after him. "Gideon!" Gideon rose. Wesley embraced him with one arm, then held him at the shoulders. "What are you doing at this table?" Several guests at the VIP table went quiet. Gideon looked toward the empty place beside Amara. "I was told that wasn't my table." Wesley followed his gaze. He saw the flowers. He saw Amara holding the music box. He saw the small dessert candle waiting in front of Landon instead of Gideon. Then he looked at the table by the service door. "Who seated him here?" he asked. The floor captain began explaining that the party had requested a quieter arrangement. Wesley stopped him. "Did Mr. Brooks request it?" The man's mouth remained open for a second. The hostess was told. "That wasn't my question." Sloane appeared beside them before the floor captain could answer. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said. "Gideon prefers simple surroundings. We were trying to make him comfortable." Wesley looked at Gideon, not Sloane. "Is that true?" It was the first time that evening someone in authority had asked Gideon what he wanted. "No." One word was enough. Sloane's face tightened. "This is a family matter." "Then your family member should have been allowed to speak." Wesley signaled to the senior server and asked to see the reservation and payment notes. The tablet showed a party of 9, a request for a VIP table, and a line Landon had added online, "Family Patriarch Hosting." There was no card attached to Gideon's seat, no signature, no direct approval, no record that anyone from the restaurant had asked him to accept the bill. Wesley turned to the floor captain, who confirmed payment with Mr. Brooks before the wine was opened. The floor captain looked at the senior server. She answered honestly. "I asked the table. Mrs. Brooks said the father was hosting. Her husband confirmed it. Mr. Gideon Brooks was not present." Wesley's voice remained calm. Then he did not confirm anything. For the first time, Sloane's guests stopped looking at Gideon as an awkward relative and began looking at her as someone who had spent money she did not have. Dinner ended shortly after 8. The last plates were cleared, and the leather bill folder was placed in front of Landon. He opened it. $7,860. His fingers pressed against the edge of the paper. Then he stood, walked to the corner table, and placed the folder beside Gideon's hand. "Dad," he said softly, "let's not turn this into something ugly." Gideon looked at the total, then at his son. "When did I agree to this? You said not to worry about dinner." "I said I wanted the family together." Landon pushed the folder closer. "You know what I meant?" "No. You knew what you needed." Sloane came up behind him. "You've paid for family dinners before, and none of those dinners began by removing my chair." Wesley stopped beside Gideon. "Gideon," he said, staring toward the VIP table, "are those people dining with you?" Gideon's eyes rested on Landon. He would not deny that this was his son. He would not pretend Amara was a stranger, but he would not accept a lie simply because it had been wrapped in the word family. "They told your staff I wasn't part of their party," he said. "Please honor that decision." Wesley closed the leather folder and handed it back to the server. "Separate Mr. Brooks's meal from the VIP table. No wine, no shared courses, and no charges he did not personally authorize." The server stopped pouring. One of Sloane's guests immediately raised a hand. "I'll need my own check too." Another guest followed, then a third. The posture of the whole table changed. People who had leaned back as Sloane ordered now leaned forward to remember exactly what they had eaten. Landon stared at the folder as it returned to him. The manager, recognizing Gideon, had not erased a bill. It had done something more important. It had made the restaurant ask him directly, but the victory lasted less than a minute. Landon's face hardened. "So that's it? You embarrass me in front of everyone and call it dignity. Gideon felt the old guilt move inside him. Practiced and familiar, Sloane saw it too. She opened her phone and said, "We should discuss what you actually promised." Wesley offered them the private lounge. Gideon did not want another room chosen for him, but Amara was watching from the table. He nodded once. Inside the lounge, Sloane placed her phone on the table and enlarged Gideon's message. "Don't worry about dinner. I just want the family together." "That is a promise to host," she said. "That is a father asking for one evening with his family. You knew the restaurant. I knew where we were eating. I didn't know I was financing your client dinner." Sloane crossed her arms. "You always make money sound dirty when you're angry, but you trained Landon to expect help." The words landed because part of them was true. Landon stepped closer. "You missed school plays. You missed half my games. Mom was sick, and you were always working." Gideon looked at his son's face and saw the boy who used to wait beside a gymnasium door with a baseball glove. Gideon had been installing floors on nights when medical bills covered the kitchen table. He had told himself that paying for the house, the hospital, and Landon's future was the same as being there. It had not been. "I know what I missed," Gideon said. "Do you?" Landon's voice cracked. "Because every time you write a check, you act like the debt is settled." Gideon did not defend himself. It never was. For a second, Landon looked surprised, then Sloane slid the phone closer. "Good. So don't abandon him again tonight." There it was. A real wound being used to force a false obligation. Gideon could have ended the immediate conflict by opening his wallet. He had enough savings to pay the full amount. The money would hurt, but not ruin him. Landon and Sloane would leave. Their guests might remember only a family disagreement. Amara could go home without seeing another card declined. Peace was available. It simply required Gideon to purchase it again. A soft knock came from the lounge door. Amara stood in the hallway holding the music box. "Can I talk to Grandpa?" Sloane started to refuse, but Landon looked away and let her pass. Gideon stepped into the hallway with her. The dining room had grown quieter. Staff moved around them with the careful attention people used when they knew a family was breaking open nearby. Amara held the grandpa card against the music box. "Are they making you pay?" "They're trying to." "Can you?" "Yes," she thought about that. "If Grandpa pays, does that mean what Mom did was okay?" The question was simple because she was 11. It was devastating because Gideon had no honest way to say no. He had believed his rescue payments protected Landon from fear. Instead, they had protected him from responsibility. If Gideon paid now, Amara would watch her mother remove a man's chair, use his name, spend his money, and escape because family love required the injured person to make everything comfortable. That was not a lesson he would leave her. Gideon called his sister and asked her to pick Amara up. She lived 12 minutes away and was already listed as an approved emergency contact. Landon gave a distracted nod when Gideon told him. Sloane was too busy arguing over the divided checks to object. "You're not coming?" Amara asked. "I have to finish one thing, then I'll call you." She handed him the place card. "Don't let Mom take it again." He placed it in his inner pocket beside his heart. While they waited for his sister, Wesley led Gideon into the small office behind the reception desk. "I can comp the table," Wesley said. "The payment note should have been verified. I can also make sure Landon and Sloane don't reserve here again." Gideon shook his head. They ordered the food. The restaurant served it. Erasing the bill only moves their choice onto you. My staff failed you. Then correct the failure. Don't make honest employees and the kitchen pay for what my family did. Wesley sat back. And the ban? Gideon looked through the office window. Sloane was speaking to the floor captain as if she could recover control through volume. Landon sat with his head down. If they threaten your staff or leave without paying, follow your rules. But don't punish them because they hurt your friend. Wesley studied him. You spent your whole life giving that boy more than you had. That may be part of the problem. What do you want me to do? Give me an honest bill, give them the same. No favors, no public show. Wesley nodded. That I can do. Gideon's sister arrived and took Amara home with the music box. Gideon watched until the elevator doors closed. Only then did he return to the lounge. The revised checks lay across the table. His meal and Amara's portion came to a small fraction of the original total. Gideon paid both and left a full tip. He did not ask for the meal to be free. He did not use Wesley's friendship to make himself bigger. Then he turned to Landon. I owe you an apology for believing money could replace the years I missed. It couldn't. Landon's eyes lifted. But my regret does not give you the right to use my name without asking. Sloane shook her head. You are really going to walk out while your son is trapped here? He isn't trapped. He has a bill for what he ordered. Gideon took a breath. This was the line he had avoided for years because saying it meant accepting that Landon might stop calling. I love you, he said. But I won't keep paying for the right to be treated like your father. He placed the spare key Landon had once given him to their house beside the phone. I'll still meet you for counseling. I'll still answer when Amara needs me. But the emergency rent, the credit cards, the trips you call business investments, those payments end tonight. Landon looked as if Gideon had struck the table. Though his father's hands had never moved, Sloane handed her card to the server. The server returned a minute later. I'm sorry, it was declined. Sloane blamed the restaurant's machine and gave her another. That card declined too, everyone heard the words, but Gideon did not stay to enjoy them. He put on his brown jacket, felt the repaired place card inside it, and walked out knowing he might have chosen a boundary his son would call abandonment. After Gideon left, the VIP evening collapsed into arithmetic. Sloane's guests asked for separate checks and paid only for the courses and drinks they could clearly claim. The couple she had been most eager to impress declined to cover the rarest bottle. One guest reminded her that she had selected it without asking anyone. When the separate payments were complete, Landon and Sloane still owed more than $3,000 for their own tasting menus, the wine they had ordered for the table, and the extras Sloane had described as essential to the experience. Sloane demanded that the charges be removed because the evening had been mishandled. Wesley joined them in the lounge with the floor captain and the original order record. Every item was served, he said. Your guests have paid their portions. Mr. Brooks has paid the charges he accepted. Your staff humiliated us. Wesley's expression did not change. My staff made a mistake when they allowed you to answer for another adult. We corrected it by asking each guest directly. We will not correct your embarrassment by charging someone who did not consent. Landon looked toward the entrance, perhaps expecting his father to return one more time. Gideon had always returned before. When Landon's rent was late, Gideon returned. When the business loan came due, Gideon returned. When Sloane booked a vacation before paying the property tax, Gideon returned. That night, the elevator doors remained closed. Wesley told them they were free to call a bank, a friend, or arrange a legitimate payment plan. They were also free to leave once the balance was resolved. If they walked out without an arrangement, the unpaid bill would be handled like any other dine and dash. No one blocked the door. No one threatened them. The rule was simply stated and allowed to stand. Sloane called two friends who had already left. Neither answered. Landon called his bank and learned that a cash advance was available at a painful rate. For nearly an hour, he resisted signing. The interest offended him more than years of taking money from his father had. At 10:15, he signed. It was the first family emergency Gideon did not solve for him. The next morning, Gideon was at his kitchen table when Landon knocked. He had slept little. The grandpa card lay beneath a heavy book, drying flat. Beside it sat an untouched cup of coffee. Landon entered without his wife. He placed Gideon's spare key to their house on the table, though Gideon had already returned the one he carried. Sloane said we should change the locks. Landon said. Gideon nodded. That's your choice. You're not going to argue. Would it change what happened? Landon paced once across the kitchen. Without the restaurant, the expensive suit, and the people he wanted to impress, he looked younger. Not innocent, just tired. I knew she was moving your chair, he said. Gideon waited. She told me before you arrived. I said you'd understand. That admission hurt more than Sloane's whisper. Gideon had spent the night wondering whether Landon had simply failed to act in the moment. Now he knew his son had agreed in advance. Why? Landon looked at the flattened card. Because those people could send Sloane business. Because I knew we couldn't afford the dinner. Because I knew you could. You knew I could pay. You never asked whether I should. Landon sat down. Are you cutting us off? I'm ending rescue payments. That isn't the same as ending the relationship. It feels the same. Then we need help separating love from money. Gideon pushed a counselor's number across the table. He had found it before sunrise. If you want to rebuild this, you apologize to Amara first, not for the declined cards. For teaching her that the person with less status can be moved aside and still charged for everyone else. Landon rubbed both hands over his face. And then you and I sit in a room with someone who won't let either of us buy our way out of the truth. What about Sloane? She decides what kind of woman she wants to be after last night. I won't decide it for her. And I won't pretend she has changed before she proves it. There was no instant forgiveness. Gideon did not hug his son and call the wound healed. Landon took the counselor's number. Before leaving, he picked up the repaired place card, looked at the purple letters, and set it down more carefully than he had found it. 3 weeks later, Wesley invited Gideon for coffee before the dinner rush. The floor captain had received a formal warning and new training. The hostess had been instructed to ask every adult guest directly about seating and payment whenever the reservation notes were unclear. Wesley did not present those changes as a gift to Gideon. They were corrections the restaurant should have made before he ever arrived. As Gideon waited near the entrance, an older black man came through the doors in work boots and a reflective jacket. A younger couple in evening clothes followed him. The woman gave the reservation name and answered every question before the older man could speak. He can sit at the end, she said, and we'll handle his order. The hostess looked at the man instead. Sir, where would you like to sit? He seemed surprised to be asked. With my daughter. Of course. And would each guest like a separate check, or why would someone like to authorize the full table? The younger woman started to answer. The hostess kept her attention on the older man until he spoke for himself. There was no manager recognition, no old friendship, no photograph on the wall. The man did not need to be secretly wealthy or important to deserve a question about his own chair and his own money. Gideon watched him walk into the dining room with his family. That quiet correction mattered more to him than a free meal ever could. 6 weeks after his birthday, Gideon met Landon and Amara at a neighborhood breakfast cafe. Landon had attended 4 counseling sessions. He had created a repayment plan for the cash advance and sold a watch he could no longer pretend was an investment. Sloane had written Gideon an apology, but he had told her that trust would be measured by what she did next, not by one careful letter. Nothing was fully repaired. But when Gideon reached the table, the chair beside Amara was waiting. In front of it stood a new place card made from thick blue paper. Grandpa. This time the letters were straight, and Amara had drawn a little music box beneath them. Landon pulled out the chair himself. Sit down, Dad. Gideon sat. They ate pancakes, eggs, and toast. Amara talked about her recital without being interrupted. Gideon knew the name of her piece and the place where her left hand entered. Landon listened when his father spoke, even when the silence afterward felt uncomfortable. When the bill arrived, Gideon reached for it by habit. Landon placed his hand on the folder. I invited you. For years. Gideon had believed love was proven by how quickly he could remove a burden from his son's hands. This time he let Landon hold it. Landon paid the small bill with money that belonged to him. No declined card. No borrowed name. No audience to impress. Amara opened the maple music box. 4 soft notes sounded across the table, and she tapped the rhythm of her piano piece with 2 fingers. Gideon looked at the place card between himself and his son. His dignity had not begun when Wesley recognized him. It had been his when he entered the restaurant in a worn brown jacket. And it was still his when he sat at a simple cafe table with no powerful friend nearby. For years he had used money to apologize for being absent. Each rescue taught Landon that his father's sacrifice had no limit. Sometimes a father's quietest strength was not opening his wallet one more time. Sometimes it was closing it long enough for his child to learn responsibility. If you believe love can include boundaries, and dignity should never depend on status, subscribe and follow. Would you have paid the bill or walked away like Gideon? Until next time, take care of yourself and the people you love.